My name is Vincent Marshall, and I'm 62 years old now. This story begins 7 years ago, on a chilly October afternoon that would change my understanding of what it means to be truly wealthy. I'd spent my entire adult life working as a mechanic. 35 years of oil changes and brake repairs and engine rebuilds. It was honest work that I took pride in, even if it left my hands permanently stained and my back constantly aching. I'd never married, never had children of my own, and lived alone in a small apartment above a dry cleaner's shop. My life was simple, routine, and solitary. That particular autumn, I'd been hired to do some repair work on the heating system of an old brownstone building in the historic district downtown. The building had been converted into several upscale apartments, and the property management company had called me because their regular contractor was booked solid. I didn't usually work on residential buildings, preferring the straightforward world of automobiles. But the pay was good, and my own business had been slow. I arrived at the building around 2 in the afternoon, my weathered red toolbox in hand and my work vest with its many pockets already strapped on. The building was beautiful in that old-world way, with marble steps leading up to ornate glass doors and architectural details you don't see in modern construction. Fallen leaves, gold and orange and rust-colored, scattered across the steps and collected in the corners. I was examining the exterior heating unit when I heard a small voice behind me. "Excuse me, mister." I turned to find a little girl standing a few feet away. She couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, with wispy blonde hair poking out from under a pink knit hat with a pom-pom on top. She wore a light blue dress that seemed too thin for the weather and clutched a teddy bear to her chest. But what struck me most was how pale she looked, almost translucent, with dark circles under her eyes that no child should have. "Hello there," I said, straightening up. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" "Mama's upstairs," she said, her voice so quiet I had to lean closer to hear. "But I can't get up there by myself. The stairs are too many." I looked at the marble steps leading to the entrance. There were perhaps 15 of them, not particularly steep. For a healthy child, they'd be no challenge at all. "Are you feeling sick?" I asked gently. She nodded, then seemed to consider something. Her face brightened slightly with a child's determination. "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." The request was so earnest, so sincere, that I found myself smiling despite my confusion about where this child's mother was and why she was outside alone. "A secret, huh? That sounds important. But first, shouldn't we let your mother know where you are?" "She knows. She's watching from the window." The little girl pointed up, and I followed her gesture to see a young woman's face in a third-floor window, looking down with an expression I couldn't quite read from that distance. "All right then," I said, carefully setting down my toolbox. "Let's get you upstairs." I knelt down, and the little girl climbed onto my back, her teddy bear squished between us. She weighed almost nothing, lighter than seemed right for a child her age. I carried her slowly up the marble steps, aware of how fragile she felt, how carefully I needed to move. "What's your name?" I asked as we climbed. "Lily," she said near my ear. "What's yours?" "I'm Vincent, but most people call me Vince." "That's a nice name, Strong." We reached the top of the steps, and I carefully set her down on the landing. She swayed slightly, and I kept a hand near her shoulder to steady her if needed. "Okay, Lily, I got you up the stairs. What's this secret you wanted to tell me?" She looked up at me with those 2 old eyes, serious and thoughtful. Then she leaned in and whispered, "The secret is that my mama cries every night. She thinks I'm asleep, but I hear her. She's scared because I'm sick and the medicine costs too much money. But I think you could help us. You have kind eyes." Before I could respond to this heartbreaking revelation, the building's entrance door burst open and a woman rushed out. She was in her late 20s, I guessed, with the same blonde hair as Lily, but pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore scrubs, the kind nurses or medical assistants wear, and her face showed equal parts relief and worry. "Lily, I told you to wait inside with Mrs. Patterson." She scooped the little girl up, then turned to me with apologetic eyes. "I'm so sorry. Did she bother you?" "I only stepped away for a minute to—" "She didn't bother me at all," I interrupted gently. "She just needed help getting up the stairs." The woman's face crumpled slightly, and she pressed her lips together as if holding back emotion. "Thank you. I'm Charlotte Hayes. We live in 3B. You must be the repairman?" "Vince Marshall. Yes, ma'am." I'm here to work on your heating system. I work at the hospital, she explained, still holding Lily close. Usually my neighbor watches Lily while I'm on shift. But Mrs. Patterson had an appointment. I was trying to run down to the corner store quickly while Lily was supposed to be resting, but she must have woken up and come looking for me. I wanted to see the leaves, Lily said, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. They're so pretty when they fall. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears she was clearly trying to hide. I know, baby, but you know you can't be walking around by yourself. You get tired too easily. Mr. Vince carried me, Lily announced, and I told him the secret. Charlotte's gaze snapped to me, fear and embarrassment warring in her expression. What secret? I made a quick decision. She told me that autumn leaves are magic if you make a wish on them. Kid stuff. The relief on Charlotte's face was palpable, though I could see she suspected I was covering for what Lily had actually said. I see. Well, thank you again, Mr. Marshall. We should let you get to work. She carried Lily inside and I returned to my tools, but I couldn't focus on the heating system. I kept thinking about that little girl's words, about a mother crying at night, about medicine that cost too much money, about a child who was clearly very sick. Over the next several hours, as I worked on diagnosing and repairing the heating issues, I learned more about Charlotte and Lily from Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who lived in 3A. She came down while I was working in the basement and struck up a conversation. That poor woman, Mrs. Patterson said, shaking her head, working doubles at the hospital, coming home exhausted, and that sweet child getting sicker. The father ran off when Lily was diagnosed. Just couldn't handle it, I guess. Left them with nothing. What's wrong with Lily? I asked, though I wasn't sure I had the right to know. Leukemia. She's in treatment, but the insurance doesn't cover everything. Charlotte's drowning in medical debt, working herself to the bone, and that baby's condition isn't improving as fast as the doctors hoped. It's heartbreaking. I thought about that all evening as I finished the repair work. I thought about it as I drove home to my empty apartment. I thought about it as I sat alone with my simple dinner of soup and bread. I'd lived simply for 35 years, spending little and saving much. Not for any particular purpose, just because I didn't need or want much. I had no family to leave it to, no grand plans for retirement. It just sat in the bank, accumulating slowly, meaninglessly. That night I made a decision that surprised even myself. The next morning I returned to the brownstone building. I'd told the property management company I needed to do a follow-up check on the heating system, which was true enough. But mostly I needed to talk to Charlotte. I knocked on apartment 3B around 10 o'clock, hoping to catch her between shifts. Charlotte answered the door in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, looking exhausted. Mr. Marshall, is something wrong with the heating? No, ma'am. Everything's working fine. I actually wanted to talk to you about something else. May I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course. Lily's sleeping, so if we could keep our voices down. The apartment was small but immaculately clean. A child's drawings covered one wall, bright splashes of color in crayon and marker. Medical equipment was discreetly tucked in corners. A small oxygen tank, various medicines organized on a high shelf, papers and appointment cards covering the refrigerator. Ms. Hayes, I began, then stopped, unsure how to say what I'd come to say. Charlotte, Lily told me something yesterday. The real secret. Charlotte's face went pale. Mr. Marshall, I'm sorry if she... Don't apologize. She's a child dealing with something no child should have to deal with. And she's worried about you, just like you're worried about her. Charlotte sank onto the couch, looking defeated. I don't know why I'm telling you this. You're a stranger. But yes, it's been impossible. The medical bills are crushing me. I work as much as I can, but it's never enough. I'm behind on rent, behind on everything. I lie awake wondering how much longer I can keep this up. What will happen if I can't? And Lily knows. No matter how hard I try to hide it, she knows. How much do you need? I asked. She looked up at me, confused. What? For the medical bills. For the treatments. How much do you need? Mr. Marshall, I can't ask you. You're not asking. I'm offering. How much? She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. I couldn't possibly. Why would you even? Because a little girl with a pink hat told me a secret and it broke my heart. Because I've spent 35 years living alone and saving. Money I don't need for a future. I'm not particularly invested in, because maybe this is what that money was meant for all along. Charlotte started crying then, really crying, and I felt awkward and helpless. I'd never been good with tears. The current outstanding bills are about $47,000, she finally said between sobs. And that's just what's already past due. The ongoing treatment costs about $3,000 a month. That insurance doesn't cover. The doctors say she needs another year, maybe 18 months of treatment. If it works. If she responds well, I did the math quickly in my head. Even with the ongoing monthly costs, it was well within what I'd saved over the decades. It would take most of it, leave me with just a modest cushion, but so what? What was I saving it for anyway? Okay, I said simply. Okay, Charlotte repeated, not understanding. Okay, I'll take care of it. Mr. Marshall, you can't just... Vince. And yes, I can. I have the money sitting in a bank doing nothing. It should be doing something. It should be helping a little girl get better and helping her mother sleep at night without crying. Charlotte was shaking her head, still crying. I can't accept this. It's too much. I don't even know you. Then get to know me. Let me be part of Lily's life. Let me visit sometimes, check how she's doing. I don't have family, Charlotte. I've been alone a long time. Maybe it's time I did something that actually matters. What followed were several weeks of logistics and paperwork. I met with Charlotte's medical billing department, paid off the outstanding debts, and set up a system to cover the ongoing treatment costs. Charlotte insisted on treating it as a loan despite my protests, drawing up a payment plan even though we both knew she'd probably never be able to fully repay it. But more importantly, I became part of their lives in a way I'd never expected. I started visiting regularly, bringing Lily small gifts, books, art supplies, stuffed animals to keep her teddy bear company. I'd carry her up and down the stairs when she was too tired to walk. I'd sit with her during the long afternoons when Charlotte had to work, reading stories or playing simple games. Lily had good days and bad days. Days when she'd laugh and draw pictures and tell me elaborate stories about her stuffed animals. Days when she could barely lift her head, when the treatment made her sick and weak. On those days, I'd just sit beside her bed, sometimes reading aloud, sometimes just being present. Charlotte slowly began to trust me, to see that my offer came with no strings attached, no ulterior motives, just a lonely man who'd found something to care about, someone to matter to. "Why are you doing this?" she asked me one evening after Lily had fallen asleep. "And please tell me the truth." I thought about how to answer. I've spent most of my life working on machines, fixing things that are broken, making things run smoothly again. It's satisfying work, but it's also isolating. You don't form relationships with engines. And somewhere along the way, I forgot to form relationships with people either. I paused, looking at Lily sleeping peacefully in her room. When Lily told me her secret, it was like waking up from a long sleep. Here was this child who had every reason to be focused on herself, on her own illness and fear. But instead, she was worried about her mother. She saw me, a complete stranger, and somehow knew I could help. Maybe needed to help. "You've given us so much," Charlotte said softly. "More than money. You've given Lily stability, joy, someone else who cares about her. You've given me hope and the ability to breathe again. How do I ever repay that?" "You don't," I said simply. "That's not how this works. You just pay it forward someday when you're able. You help someone else who needs it." Lily's treatment continued through that winter and into the spring. Slowly, gradually, she began to respond. Her color improved. She had more good days than bad. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, then genuinely hopeful, then finally able to say the word remission. I was there the day Charlotte got the news, waiting in the apartment when she came home from the hospital, meeting with Lily's oncologist. She burst through the door, grabbed me, and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "She's in remission." They said she's in remission. The treatment worked. She's going to be okay. We both cried then, this woman I'd barely known a year ago and me, two people brought together by a little girl's secret and a mechanic's unexpected capacity for love. That was 7 years ago. Lily is 12 now, healthy and thriving. She's in middle school, active in art club, and still makes elaborate origami, creations that she gives to people she thinks need cheering up. Charlotte finished her nursing degree and now works in pediatric oncology, helping other families navigate the impossible journey she once traveled. They tried to repay the money for years, sending me small checks whenever they could. I deposited them in a savings account and never touched it. Last year, when Lily turned 11, I gave her that account with all the money they'd paid back plus interest. For college, I told her. Or whatever dream you want to chase. Charlotte protested, of course, but I waved her off. I told you when we started this, it's not about the money. It never was. I'm retired from mechanical work now. My arthritic hands finally forcing me to admit I can't do the physical labor anymore. But I stay busy volunteering at the children's hospital where Lily was treated, visiting with kids who are going through what she went through. I've become something of a grandfather figure to several families, offering support, sometimes financial help when I can, but mostly just presence and care. My small apartment is filled with drawings and cards from children I've helped over the years. I have dinner with Charlotte and Lily every Sunday. I've met Charlotte's new partner, a kind man named Marcus who treats Lily like his own daughter. I was invited to their wedding last summer and walked Charlotte down the aisle since her own father had passed years before. I have a family now, not by blood, not in any traditional sense, but in all the ways that actually matter. I have people who care whether I wake up each morning, who call to check on me, who include me in their celebrations and their ordinary days. All because a little girl in a pink hat with a pom-pom once said, "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." That secret changed everything. It woke me up to the truth that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in connections, in the lives we touch and the love we share. It taught me that the most meaningful investments we can make aren't financial but human. Sometimes people ask me if I regret spending my life savings on strangers. I tell them I've never regretted anything less. That money was just sitting in a bank, doing nothing, meaning nothing. Now it means everything because it bought something no money can actually buy. It bought a child her future, a mother her peace, and a lonely man his purpose. Lily still tells me secrets sometimes. They're different now. Age-appropriate concerns about school and friends and growing up. But sometimes when she thinks I'm not paying attention, I catch her looking at me with those same serious eyes she had at 4 years old. And I know she remembers. She remembers being so sick and scared. Remembers her mother's tears. Remembers the moment a stranger decided their lives were worth saving. And I remember too. I remember the moment I realized that all those years of solitary work, of simple living and careful saving, had been preparing me for something I didn't even know I needed. The chance to matter to someone, to make a real difference in the world. The poet Mary Oliver once asked, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" For 35 years, I didn't have a good answer to that question. I just worked and saved and existed without really living. But a little girl on a staircase gave me the answer. You plan to love people. You plan to help where you can. You plan to build connections that matter more than possessions. You plan to invest in human hearts rather than financial markets. That's what you do with your one wild and precious life. And if you're very lucky as I've been, you get to see the results of that investment grow and thrive. You get to watch a sick child become a healthy preteen. You get to see a desperate mother find stability and hope. You get to become part of a family you never knew you needed, all because you carried a little girl up some stairs and listened to her secret. And really, when you think about it, that's the best investment anyone could ever make.